You are walking past a store. There's a sign in the window, sale, 50% off. And you feel it, a small pull. Maybe you slow down. Maybe you go in. You've done this 1,000 times. But here's the thing nobody says out loud. Before a store can cross a price out, they have to pick a price to cross out. And they get to pick any number they want. That number, the crossed out one, is doing almost all of your brain right now. It's setting what you think the sweater is worth. It's making $40 feel like a rescue. But what if that $80 was never a real price? What if it was set specifically to make $40 look good? Here's what we're going to cover: how your brain processes an anchor number and why it can't stop even when you know the trick, what the actual federal rule on fake prices says, why a department store CEO publicly admitted his prices were fake and then nearly destroyed his company by trying to make them honest, and why the fake prices came back, because apparently we need them.
Here's the thing that should bother you. You already know stores do this. It's not a secret. If I told you right now that a store set a price at $80 specifically so they could cross it out and charge $40, you would not be surprised. And yet, the next time you see a crossed-out price, your brain will still treat it as real information. You will still feel like you're getting a deal. Why does a number you already know might be invented still feel like a reference point? That's not a rhetorical question. There's an actual answer. And it's a little disturbing. In 1974, two psychologists named Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman published a paper in Science that described a bias called anchoring. Here's what it says. When your brain encounters a number first, it grabs it. Everything that comes after gets evaluated relative to that first number, even when the first number is completely arbitrary. They demonstrated this with a spinning wheel. They had people spin a wheel of fortune. It landed on a random number, 0 to 100, then asked them to estimate things like how many African countries are in the United Nations. The people who spun high numbers guessed higher. The people who spun low numbers guessed lower. The wheel was random. It had nothing to do with the question. It didn't matter. That's the mechanism. Your brain sees the $80 first. It anchors. Now it evaluates everything from there. The $40 isn't being judged on what a sweater is worth. It's being judged on how different is this from $80. And the answer is very different. So it feels like a deal. Even if $80 was a number someone typed into a spreadsheet on a Tuesday morning specifically to make $40 feel good.
And it gets better. Researchers at MIT ran a field experiment with a women's clothing catalog. They changed the price of a dress from $34 to $39. Demand went up by a third. The more expensive version outsold the cheaper one, because prices ending in 9 have become a trained signal for bargain. Your brain has been taught that a 9 at the end means discount. It doesn't need a crossed-out number. The 9 is its own anchor. Separately, the same researchers found that putting the word sale next to a price with no actual price change increased demand by more than 50% in some experiments. The sign is free to make. There's no legal commitment attached to it. It's just a word. And it works. I want that to sit for a second. A word, printed on cardstock, with no promise behind it, can move more than half of you on its own. Now, to be fair, and I think being fair here makes the story more interesting, not less, reference pricing isn't inherently evil. It solves a real problem. When you walk into a store and see an unfamiliar product, you have no idea what it's worth. What's the right price for a hand blender, a waterproofing spray, a set of wine glasses? You've never bought one before. You have no baseline. So your brain needs a reference point to anchor on. A genuine former price, what the item actually cost last month, is useful information. It helps you figure out whether $40 is a good deal or a ripoff. The FTC actually says this explicitly. Their federal pricing rules state that a real former price is a legitimate basis for the advertising of a price comparison. The mechanism was built for a world where reference prices meant something. Your brain developed this shortcut because for most of human history, what it cost before was a reasonable guide to what it's worth.
Retailers found the gap. The brain doesn't check whether the number was real, it just anchors. And then they walked through it.
In fact, the FTC described a specific example of fake price anchoring back in 1967. A retailer buys pens for $5 each. His normal selling price is $7.50. So he briefly marks them at $10, knowing he'll sell almost none at that price. Then cuts them to $7.50 and advertises, "We're $10, now only $7.50. The FTC called this, obviously, a false claim. That was in their official guidance from 1967, which is still on the books. The rule is nearly 60 years old. The behavior it was written to stop is still the primary promotional strategy of most major retailers in the country. Great system.
Now, here's the part I had to read twice. In 2012, JCPenney CEO, a man named Ron Johnson, held a press conference and publicly called his store's pricing strategy fake prices. Not in a leak, not in a lawsuit, in a press release. He said that fewer than 1% of the store's revenues came from items sold at the full, so-called original price. He meant it as a condemnation of the old system. He was going to fix it. So he did. He eliminated the crossed-out prices. He went to simple, honest, everyday low pricing. No more fake originals. No more manufactured discounts. Just the real price. Sales dropped 25% in a single year. The company lost nearly $1 billion. Johnson was fired, and his replacement raised the prices back up and put them on sale. The fake prices came back because the customers wanted them. JCPenney wasn't alone. A consumer watchdog called Mouseprint tracked 20 items at Kohl's for 103 consecutive days. According to their data, 1 in 4 items was on sale every single day.
Never sold at the original price. Not once. And in lawsuits that followed, which Kohl's settled without admitting wrongdoing, the allegation was that some items were marked as on sale for as many as 90 out of every 90 days. Think about what that means. The sale price isn't a discount from the regular price. The sale price is the regular price. The higher number, the one being crossed out, is the fiction. The savings exist only on the tag. Now here's the part that should make you a little suspicious of your own judgment. In 2003, researchers at MIT had students write down the last 2 digits of their social security number, a completely random, personal, nothing to do with shopping number, and then bid on consumer goods. Students with high-ending social security numbers bid up to 346% more for identical items than students with low-ending numbers. 346% for the same product, because they saw a bigger number first. The anchor doesn't need to be a price. It doesn't need to be related to the product. It doesn't even need to be about shopping at all. It just needs to be seen first. Your brain grabs the first number and won't let go. And this is the part that should make you a little suspicious of yourself, in a curious way, not a hopeless one. You can know this is happening and still not be immune to it. That's not stupidity. That's just how anchoring works. It runs below the level where knowing about it helps much. So here's where we actually land. 3 things that turned out to be different than you were led to believe. 1. The original price is not always a real price. In many cases, it's a number set specifically to make the sale price feel cheap. The federal rules say it has to be genuine, but they've been on the books since 1967, and enforcement has mostly been left to class action lawyers rather than the government. 2. The sale is not always limited. Some of these deals run for months, or all year. The sale is the regular experience, dressed up as a special one. 3. This is not entirely the retailer's fault, and I mean that seriously. JCPenney's experiment proved it. A CEO publicly called the prices fake, removed them, gave everyone honest prices, and customers left. The experiment cost him his job. We apparently need the theater of the deal. We need to feel like we beat the system, even a system we know is rigged. The fake price isn't just something stores do to us. It's something they continue doing because enough of us prefer it to the alternative. You didn't save $40 off an $80 sweater. You paid $40 for a sweater they always planned to sell for $40 next to a number that made you feel clever for noticing it. And I think the most honest thing I can say is the psychological engineering is impeccable. It's a nearly 60-year-old trick. It's federally noted. It was exposed publicly by a Fortune 500 CEO, and it still works. On most of us. Most of the time. Honestly, incredible work. Terrible for your wallet, but incredible.